Birth mother meets her daughter after 23 years, night pressed against the hospital windows, a restless tide of rain and neon. 19-year-old Anna lay in a room that already felt abandoned, the clean smell of antiseptic unable to hide the ache of goodbye. The plastic crib beside her was vacant, sheets smoothed by hands that would never tuck them in again. She held a Polaroid of herself cradling the newborn girl taken only hours earlier, the colors already fading like a memory in flight. The social worker waited by the door with polite urgency. One signature remained between Anna and a future she could not picture. She slid the photograph into the front pocket of her thin gown, drawing courage from its stiff corners, then scrawled her name across the final line. Paperwork finished. Destiny shifted. Before leaving, Anna stood and brushed a fingertip over the crib's cool rail. Rain hammered the glass, and thunder rolled down the corridors of the sky. She whispered, "Find me when you're ready," a promise that felt far too small for 23 years of separation. The overhead light clicked off, plunging the room into shadow, but she could not accept darkness. Instead, she switched on the small lamp fixed above the crib, a fragile beacon shimmering gold against white walls. Its warm circle cut a hole through the gloom, while outside the storm churned. When Anna stepped into the hallway, she looked back once, watching the lamp glow over the empty space where her daughter had been. The moment etched itself into her heart, bright and terrible, and impossible to forget. A nurse guided her to the exit. Fluorescent corridors bled into the sulfur glow of parking lot lamps, each reflected in shivering puddles. Cars hissed past carrying other families toward cribs that would not be empty. Beneath the awning, Anna waited until a city bus sighed to the curb. She hovered on the first step, hand gripping the cold rail, the Polaroid pressed against her ribs. In that hush, she vowed that wherever life carried her, a single bulb would burn every night until the child she surrendered found her way through the dark and home to its glow. The birthday gathering was small but affectionate. A cluster of friends and neighbors crowded into the Miles family living room. 23 slim candles burned on Emily's vanilla cake, and at the center stood a tiny wax question mark that flickered like a riddle. When the lights dimmed and the singing began, she felt the old, unspoken tug beneath her ribs, the one that always asked where she truly began. She drew breath, shut her eyes, and blew. Applause erupted. Candles hissed out. As overhead lights came up, Emily noticed something tucked beneath the cake knife, a Polaroid from her infancy, the baby's face carefully torn away long ago. She slid it under her plate before anyone else could see. After presents, her adoptive father, Martin, handed her a narrow box. Inside, cushioned by foam, lay a home DNA kit. "Maybe this year will uncover the rest of your story," he said with a soft smile. Gratitude and apprehension collided inside her. That night, long after guests departed, she sat at her desk lit only by her laptop, swabbed the inside of her cheek, and sealed the sample in its envelope. On the customs form she wrote a single line, "Find my first light," without knowing why those words felt right. The days that followed stretched like taffy. Emily found herself scrutinizing strangers on the subway, searching for echoes of her own cheekbones in the faces around her. Each night she opened a journal and listed fragments of herself, favorite lullabies, the first book she loved, the faint scar from learning to ride a bike, fearful the woman who gave her life might never see the mosaic of who she had become. The entries multiplied, neat rows of black ink across white pages, a private atlas of her heart. On the 27th day, she folded the growing stack of notes, tied them with ribbon, and placed them beside her computer, as if the words themselves could guide the DNA report back more quickly. Outside, wind rattled bare tree limbs. Across the country in a coastal town Emily had never heard of, a porch lamp glowed against the rain, unaware its quiet shine had just been noticed by a stranger far away. Weeks passed. At 3 a.m, the ping of a new email jolted Emily awake. The DNA results listed a single close match. Javier Cartwright, age 45, living in Beaufort Cove, Oregon. Probable cousin. 87% related. Almost, but not enough. Yet Javier's public note froze her breath. Looking for a relative whose mother never turns off the porch light. Emily searched the phrase and found a decade-old local article about a librarian who had kept a lamp burning for the daughter she surrendered. The grainy photograph showed a woman atop a seaside porch, replacing a bulb at sunset. Though pixels blurred the details, Emily felt an eerie recognition, as if the woman's posture mirrored her own. Moments later, an email from Javier arrived. He mentioned a modest cottage on a cliff, a library job, and a steadfast light that guided fishermen and, he hoped, lost children. His final line read, "Some journeys begin after midnight buses." Booking the ticket was simple. Waiting for departure was excruciating. Emily boxed up childhood artifacts, paint-splattered sneakers, a cracked snow globe from her first trip to the coast, and labeled the carton, "Keep Safe." She spent her final evening with Martin and Diane over takeout noodles, laughter forced but genuine. At the terminal, she clutched her coffee and scanned every stranger, wondering who else might be chasing a past written on their bones. Hours later, the bus's interior lights dimmed. Through the smeared glass, she watched highway signs blur into glowing ribbons, mile after mile unwinding toward a mother she could only picture by porch light. Sleep came in fragments. At dawn, she woke to a landscape of emerald pines and mist-shrouded cliffs tumbling into the Pacific. A view so wild and beautiful, she whispered a wordless prayer of thanks, for answers, whatever they might be. As the city receded, Emily flicked the hallway switch in her apartment back on, leaving her own light burning behind her. The bus hissed into Beaufort Cove before dawn, depositing Emily beside a sleepy bait shop that smelled of salt and diesel. She walked, suitcase bumping against her shin, guided by the hush of tide and the faraway gleam of a single unwavering lamp on the bluff. Each street felt pulled toward that glow as though the town itself angled her feet. Inside the cottage, Anna replaced a burned-out bulb with practiced hands. She had lost count of how many she had changed over 23 years, yet every twist carried the same tremor of hope. When warm light spilled across the porch boards, she exhaled, touched the glass, and whispered goodnight to a daughter who might finally be old enough to see. Emily's route wound past clapboard houses painted sea glass colors, each porch boasting buoys and nets that smelled faintly of brine. She paused at a corner bakery where morning bread scented the air, watched fishermen push skiffs onto a rising tide, and tried to picture Anna's daily life, recommending picture books to preschoolers, shelving her hope among the stacks she tended. She imagined the librarian lingering by second-floor windows each evening, searching the road for footsteps that never appeared, then returning home to a lamp and a cat for company. Anna, meanwhile, finished her letter and sealed it in the familiar peach envelope. She poured tea that cooled untouched, while she turned pages of a leather journal covered in imagined milestones. First tooth, first bicycle crash, first heartbreak. She had drafted each entry in pencil, promising herself she would ink the lines once life delivered the real dates. Tonight, as the lamp painted the words in honeyed light, she dared to believe the time for ink might finally be near. Along the road below, Emily paused on the slick pavement. The lamp's glow painted a golden path across the puddles, beckoning her forward. She gripped the suitcase handle, heart thudding, and started up the hill toward the light that had waited her whole life. At the hilltop curve, Emily nearly collided with the postman, who was juggling letters while balancing a dripping umbrella. A sudden gust sent an envelope spinning from his stack. It landed face up in a puddle at her feet. Emily, in care of whoever finds her. Peach paper, flowing script. Her chest tightened as she lifted it, raindrops blooming dark spots across the name she had worn for 23 years. The porch light shone only steps away, illuminating the silhouette of a woman standing in the doorway, coaxing a ginger cat inside. Emily's hand rose half-consciously, but doubt surged harder. Would knocking heal or wound? She backed into shadow, clutching the damp envelope and the torn Polaroid, then turned down a side street toward town lights. After leaving the diner, Emily drifted to the edge of the pier where salt spray flecked her coat, and barn-dark pilings groaned beneath slow waves. Moonlight scattered across the water like a handful of silver coins, and she found herself imagining all the birthdays spent beneath this same sky, 2 lives circling one another without meeting. She folded the letter again and pressed it to her lips, tasting sea salt and paper, then slipped it into her inside pocket beside the repaired Polaroid. Along Main Street, shop windows displayed hand-painted shells and model ships. In one antique store, she noticed a dozen mismatched lamps glowing, even though the place was closed, their collective light forming a constellation in glass. The sight steadied her resolve. She would return to the cottage tomorrow. She would deliver the letter with her own voice. Back at the cottage, Anna shut the door against the chill, only to notice a bus ticket lying on the mat. date-stamped that very evening. Beneath a street lamp, she unfolded it, brows knitting, heart hammering with a hope so sharp it hurt. Sleep eluded Emily. Shortly after midnight, she left the inn and walked back through the drizzle toward the cottage, the letter tucked inside her coat like a secret heartbeat. The porch lamp threw a warm halo onto the steps, inviting and terrifying. She climbed 2 boards, lifted her hand, then froze. A light switched on inside. Footsteps approached, and panic flooded her muscles. She slipped the Polaroid through the cracked door frame, then fled down the hill as the door opened. Anna found the photo lying on the top step. One half captured her own arms cradling an infant. The other half was missing. Tears blurred her vision. Clutching the fragment, she hurried into the rain, scanning the street. Ahead, she glimpsed a fleeing figure. Inside the library, the silence felt alive, humming with stories sleeping on their shelves. Emily's footsteps tapped softly on marble mosaics depicting maritime legends. She paused before a display case holding black and white photos of the town's founding families, tracing unfamiliar faces and wondering if hidden blood connected her to any of them. In the hush, she could hear her own breath, and faintly, another's. Rapid, searching. Anna, moving through the stacks, recalled nights spent napping at the circulation desk after late shifts, jolting awake whenever the front doors rattled in the wind, convincing herself that each gust might be her daughter come home. She followed the faint echo of Emily's movements past geography, past poetry, into biography where dust smelled of peppery parchment. Her heart beat so loud she feared the other woman could hear it. Emily, sensing presence, ducked between shelves of memoirs, hands trembling. In a beam of emergency light, she caught sight of a brass library stamp on a table. Beaufort Cove Public. Returned. The word returned glowed like a blessing. In the vast, dim lobby, dust motes hung like suspended stars. Somewhere between rows of silent shelves, the 2 hearts that had always been one moved closer, guided by instinct and the faint glow of an exit sign. Emergency lights cast thin blue paths through stacks of history and fiction. Emily, hiding behind biographies, pressed the peach envelope against her chest, pulse racing. A soft footstep sounded at the aisle's mouth. Anna, breathless, stepped into the pale glow, nightgown soaked and clinging, Polaroid half held like a compass needle. Their eyes met. Neither woman spoke. Emily produced her own fragment, edges warped by years of handling. She slid it forward. Anna matched it to hers. The 2 halves clicked into place, whole again, and the air between them seemed to fold inward. Emily's phone vibrated with a message from Martin. "Whatever happens, you are loved." She slipped it away, tears welling. The security alarm warning of automatic lockup beeped in the lobby. Anna retrieved a flashlight from a maintenance cart and extended her free hand. Emily took it. They moved together through the echoing foyer, past shuttered checkout desks and card catalogs, emerging into rain-washed streets where the first pale hint of dawn colored the clouds. The storm had blown itself out, leaving the world hushed and silver. Anna guided Emily along a footbridge over marsh grass, the flashlight now dim against morning. Words finally arose, tentative at first, then spilling like water through a cracked dam. Emily spoke of lifelong questions, of invisible roots tugging every birthday wish. Anna confessed to yearly letters, to budgeting for light bulbs before groceries, to a cat named Orion, because the constellation kept her company. They stopped midway across the bridge where gulls circled lazy spirals. Emily handed over the peach envelope. Anna opened it and found a plain card inside, printed with the words, "Come home when you're ready," a message she herself had written countless times and forgotten. Emotion folded her shoulders. Emily steadied her. Church bells marked 5 o'clock. Chill wind carried the smell of coffee from distant kitchens. Anna lowered the dying flashlight and pointed toward the lamp still shining on her porch. "We can walk there," she said. "At the door, the choice will be yours." Side by side, they left the bridge, footprints mingling on the damp sand path leading toward home. Sunrise painted Beaufort Cove in rose and gold as mother and daughter climbed the final slope. Dew glazed the rails. Wind chimes offered a gentle hymn. Anna pointed out tokens of hope. The willow where she had scratched imaginary birthdays, river stones painted with tiny candles, a cedar chest visible through the front window. Emily shared her own talismans, A violin recital imagined as a reunion. A dorm ceiling covered in glow stars meant to map out someone's return. At the porch, Anna flipped the switch and the lamp flared even in daylight, stubborn as faith. She stepped aside. Emily mounted the 3 steps, boards sighing under her shoes. She raised her hand, feeling 23 years gather in her knuckles, and knocked. The sound echoed through the morning like a bell rung once. Heartbeat-long silence passed before the latch turned, and the door eased inward. Door and daylight met at the threshold, and Anna and Emily faced one another fully lit for the first time. The years etched on Anna's features softened under relief. Emily's quest-tightened expression melted into wonder. Sunlight spilled between them, mingling with the warm glow of the porch lamp, so that neither could say where one light ended and the other began. Anna stepped back, voice hoarse but steady. "Welcome home." Emily crossed the threshold, shoes squeaking on polished floorboards. Inside, the house breathed histories. Letters tied with ribbon on a side table, baby clothes folded in cedar, drawings mailed anonymously each year hanging in simple frames. Each artifact formed a bridge across the once uncharted gap between them. Tears came, slow and unstoppable. Emily's shoulders shook. Anna gathered her into arms that had ached empty for decades. They did not attempt to explain the lost years. They simply stood together until the porch lamp's glow shimmered through their mingled tears. Later, voices low, they walked room to room, placing the past in its proper corners. Outside, the lamp remained lit, a steadfast witness. Wind stirred the chimes into quiet harmony while seabirds wheeled overhead. The front door closed with a gentle click. Not an ending, but a beginning. On the empty porch, the steady bulb shone on, bright against the morning sky, a small radiant promise that some lights are meant to stay lit forever. If Anna's stubborn porch light reminded you of your own silent hopes, let us know what keeps shining in your heart. Share your story below, and join our community by hitting subscribe so you never miss the next tale of love, loss, and the courage to find the way home.